Well, folks, we will hop right into our governmental affairs team updates. I've got Jim and Bethany here, and I'm going to hand it right over to them and have them tell us what's new in Washington, D.C. as it relates to Habitat.
All right, thanks, Renee, and thanks for inviting us to do one of these YouTube updates again for our members. We've had a lot happening, and it's a good time to report. So a lot of you probably saw last week that the Recovering America's Wildlife Act passed out of the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, Senate EPW, with a vote of 15-5. It passed the House Natural Resources Committee earlier this year. So that was a big move for the Recovering America's Wildlife Act, which will dedicate $1.4 billion annually spread across all the states to implement the state wildlife action plans. And that will include a lot of great habitat work for pheasants and quail. We've been working this initiative for, gosh, I think probably 8 years now. Our members have made many calls to action. Our National Youth Leadership Council has come to DC and advocated for it. So to see it pass out of Senate committee was really exciting. That was a big move. So the next move is going to be what's called a race to the floor to try and get a floor vote within the next 3 months. So stay tuned on that. You're going to hear a lot more from us. Moving on to the North American Grasslands Conservation Act, a new concept that we've brought up to you a few times over the past year to create a NACA, North American Wetlands Conservation Act, like program for grasslands and sage. I'm trying not to use too many acronyms, but I kind of have to. Sorry, folks. Which would be a grant-based program for habitat improvement projects in the grasslands and sagebrush areas. So we've gotten quite a bit of traction in the Senate. We've had a great deal of support from Senator Ron Wyden. He's working on some draft language that would be pretty similar to what we've been talking about, $350 million a year, every year, implemented through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And right now we're just working to get a bipartisan bill together, hopefully here in the next 3 to 4 months, so that we can have a bipartisan introduction of the North American Grasslands Conservation Act. So with that, I will hand it over to Jim.
Good morning, everybody. We wanted to talk about the Conservation Reserve Program and kind of where we are with that. I think when we did our last update, then the sign-up had just begun. So the general sign-up had ended right there the last week that we had of a Pheasant Fest there on March 11th. And we did hear the secretary in an interview just last week mention that about 1.9 million acres were offered. We don't have the details yet on how many of those offers will be accepted by USDA. And recall that we've got about 4 million acres expiring this year. So there's still plenty of opportunity for continuous enrollment, state acres for wildlife, otherwise known as SAFE, quail buffers, wetlands, Clear 30, which is in the 2018 Farm Bill. That is a 30-year option on some practices that are really water quality focused. So again, tremendous opportunities here through the rest of the year. And as soon as those numbers are available, we'll be sure to get them out to you all. And in your states, you'll probably hear how things go in your states individually through some of the partners and our staff as well. One of the things that we've also been hearing about over the last month is that there's been a request from some members of Congress and some groups that maybe we should open up CRP for cropping. And in an emergency type situation, obviously there's some global crises going on. There's some issues with food and grain nation or worldwide, really. And so there was a kind of a request there that came through. And at this point, Secretary Vilsack has said that that's not on the table right now. Some of the comments that he made were that some of these acres are obviously environmentally sensitive, as well as some of these acres are currently in drought situations. So again, right now there's nothing on the table to open that up, and we'll continue to monitor that as we move forward here. Some really good announcements as well have been like the Michigan CREP program is now reopened. So we've seen some states that are continuing and offering PrEP again in those states where maybe that they expired or were on hold for a little bit, maybe due to funding. So that's great to see as well. Another good move that happened a few weeks ago is Senator Thune from South Dakota and Senator Klobuchar from Minnesota introduced a bipartisan CRP bill. It's kind of the first marker bill that we've seen as we head into the 2023 Farm Bill. And it's doing some great things in there to help fix some of the cost share incentives that we lost in the last couple of years and through some of the interpretation of the 2018 Farm Bill. So a lot of good things there, like putting cost share in for mid-contract management, again, as an example, so we can get the best out of the acres that we can do, as well as raise the payment cap from 50,000. So each CRP contract or each landowner can't have any more than $50,000 in payments under CRP, and that's looked to raise it to 125,000. You know, land values, rents, and those things have gone up. So we historically have seen that when landowners have gone in to renew contracts, that maybe they've already hit that cap, so they might not offer as many acres because of that. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Just to kind of wrap up a little bit, we're going through the budget and appropriations process right now that's happening. You know, the president's budget came out, which looked pretty favorable to conservation, especially on USDA and the Natural Resource Conservation Service, as well as funding for, as Bethany mentioned, like the NACA program, the North American Wetlands Conservation Act. Every couple of years, we've got to go through that process to make sure that the money's in there on an annual basis. So Congress and the administration kind of go back and forth on what they would like to see. So everything right now looks pretty favorable, and we're monitoring that as it moves back through the process. So with that, Renee, I guess we'll go to you for maybe any questions you might have for us.
Absolutely. So it's very evident that you guys have a lot of movement in all of these pieces, which is great. So it begs the question, how can our members and volunteers be involved at the individual level, be engaged with you guys to help out our advocacy work?
Yeah, so as we discussed a little bit ago, there's several big pieces of legislation moving, and we really try not to ask our members to make calls to Congress unless it's definitely an inflection point where their call makes a difference. We don't take that for granted, that this is time out of their day, send an email, make a phone call. But we do have a few inflection points coming up. You'll probably see an email from us or our blogs or, tweets, whatever form of communication you use to follow us. It says, call your senator or congressman now. Most likely it'll be the Senate, because we're talking about the Recovering America's Wildlife Act and the Grasslands Act, and there will be kind of two things coming up where we will need your help in the next 3 months. So when you see those asks, please take some time and call your member of Congress, because it matters.
And on the USDA side or Farm Bill program side, as we've talked in a number of these updates, I mean, the 2018 Farm Bill will expire next year. So it'll become the 2023 Farm Bill. And we have heard on the Senate side, well, on the Senate and House side, there's been a few hearings in DC, but we're hearing that they're going to start planning some field hearings yet this spring and summer. And it's a great opportunity to provide written comments or maybe show up in person on those. We do know that here probably in the next month or so that Senator Stabenow, the chair of the Senate Ag Committee, and the ranking member Boozman from Arkansas are going to have two hearings. One will be in Michigan, the first one, and then the second one there as the two leads of the Senate Ag Committee. So be looking out for those. And historically, when we've done those in the past, and there's an opportunity for our members and volunteers and supporters to write letters or even provide comments or questions there. So even though it's outside of DC, it is an official hearing, and it's part of the record. So any of those comments they will look at to address. So those are some things we'll hear. And then on the House side, we haven't heard specifically of any field hearings yet, but they'll likely pick some of those up as well. So again, we'll get that information out, and likely come out through the regional reps and some of the other staff within the state when those happen. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys, both of you, and for all of your tireless work. Like they mentioned, stay tuned for those call to actions. If I know anything about our organization, it's that we definitely step up to answer those. So stay tuned for those. But thank both of you for keeping us updated and allowing us to hear some the movement on these pieces and breaking down the acronyms a little bit and the crazy world of legislation. So thank both of you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.